The sea has always been a mysterious world to humans. Hidden in the depths of the waves lies an unknown darkness, a darkness where light cannot reach, and sound seems to slowly fade away. The summer of 1990, special naval expedition began from a secret base in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Involved in that mission was a modern submarine named Shakti. This submarine was built with special technology. It had communication systems that were generally known only to high-ranking military officers. Its main task was to remain submerged for months, observing enemy movements. But on a dark night in July 1999, everything suddenly changed. The clock had just passed 2 in the morning. Commander Aridit Dasha, the officer in the communication room, suddenly noticed that the radio signal was lost. The sea outside was calm, but an unusual noise was heard inside the submarine, as if a huge metal object was scraping against its hull. Captain Vikram Singh tried to quickly manage the situation, but within minutes, the Navy lost all contact with the submarine. Hours turned into days, and days into weeks. There was no trace of it anywhere. Rescue ships and special diving teams were sent to search the sea, but the result was nil. The submarine seemed to have vanished into thin air. The government kept the matter a secret. A small notice was published in the newspapers. Shakti lost during training exercise. Cause unknown. Many families were devastated by this incident. To those who had lost their loved ones, the government sent only a message of condolence. Missing in action, Captain Vikram's wife, Meera, and their young son, Arnab, waited day after day, hoping he might return someday. But years passed, and the light of hope faded. Time moved on. A new century arrived. The world changed, but the mystery of that submarine remained buried in the darkness of history. April 2020. The world was at a standstill due to the pandemic. A team of researchers was collecting data on their ship, the Ocean Quest, in the middle of the sea. Their main job was to measure undersea earthquakes. Suddenly, the radio operator, Sanjay, picked up a strange signal. The signal was very weak, but it came repeatedly. At first, they thought it might be a natural wave or a signal from a broken cable, but after listening for a few minutes, Sanjay was astonished. Within the signal, clear words could be heard. "This is Shakti requesting immediate assistance." Everyone froze. The ship's captain, Dr. Elena Frost, couldn't believe her eyes. Shakti, but that submarine vanished more than 20 years ago. The operator adjusted the frequency again. This time, it was clearer. Crew alive, oxygen low, need extraction. The words were in an old military code, a code that had been decommissioned before the year 2000. This meant it wasn't a joke. But how was it possible? If the submarine was truly stuck at the bottom of the sea, how were the people inside still alive? Panic and curiosity spread among the researchers on the ship. A scientist named Alex said, "This must be a radio echo, or maybe a satellite rebound." But Sandy shook his head. "No, I recognize this frequency. These are live transmissions." They immediately tried to trace the signal's direction. The location pointed to a deep part of the Indian Ocean, marked on marine charts as some 9. The area was extremely dangerous. The sea there was nearly 10,000 meters deep. Ordinary divers or submarines couldn't descend that far. Dr. Elena decided this information could not be kept secret, but reporting it directly to the government might lead to them covering everything up, so she first wanted to gather proof. Sanjay recorded the radio for several more hours. The signal kept cutting out, but occasionally, human voices could be heard, screams, gasps for breath, and metallic sounds. The next morning, They deployed an underwater drone. As the drone descended, at first there was only darkness. Then, suddenly, a massive metal structure appeared on camera. When the lights hit it, they saw an old submarine, lying tilted on the seafloor. Written on its side, Wazen's Shakti. A shiver went down Evrian's spine. The vessel was still intact after all these years. But what was even more frightening was that a faint light was still emanating from inside the submarine. "Doctor," Elena whispered, "someone is still alive in there." The scene that unfolded before the drone's camera was hard to believe. The In's Shakti lay on the sea as if in a strange slumber. Marine algae and coral had encrusted its outer walls, surrounded by darkness. But the unusual thing was a faint light was still flickering from within. "Doctor." Elena held her breath and whispered, "This is impossible. No one can survive for over 20 years. Sanjay squinted at the monitor. "Then who is sending the signal?" The camera panned around the submarine. The hatch door was partially open, as if it had been forced shut from the outside. As the drone entered, the camera feed blurred for a moment, then cleared up. The corridors inside were almost intact, but there were strange marks on the walls in some places, as if scratched by someone's nails or a sharp object. As the drone moved forward, a voice came over the radio. "Is anyone out there? This is Captain Bikram Singh. We are trapped." Everyone froze. Captain Bikram Singh, who was officially declared missing in action in 1999. How could his voice be heard? Alex, in disbelief, said, "It's a recording. It must be an old message playing on a loop." But Sanjay shook his head. "No, I can clearly hear a live response. There's an echo in the voiced signal, just like it's coming from the pressure inside the submarine." "Doctor." Elena remained silent for a moment before making a decision. "We have to go deeper." But there was a problem. Sun 9 was so deep that it was impossible to descend with standard diving suits or submersibles. They didn't have any equipment that could withstand the pressure. Nevertheless, the research team looked at each other and understood they couldn't let this discovery slip through their fingers. They prepared for 3 days. All the equipment on the Ocean Quest was repaired. New lights were installed on the drone and special sensors were attached to capture sounds from inside. On the morning of the 4th day, the drone was sent down again. This time, as the drone entered, the camera captured movement at the end of a corridor. When the light fell on it, a person in a tattered Navy uniform was seen floating in the water. At first, Evrian thought it was a dead body, but suddenly the person turned, and their eyes looked directly at the camera. The eyes were unnaturally bright, as if not accustomed to light after being in the dark for so long. A faint voice then came through the drone's microphone. "Help, please, oxygen." Sanjay's hands started to tremble. "It's Leb. They are still alive." But the situation became even more terrifying as the drone went deeper into the submarine. In a large chamber, many people were seen sitting. A count revealed at least 15 of them. They were all frail, their skin clinging to their bonds, but there was a strange look in their eyes. Some were slowly chanting something like a mantra. Alex, his throat dry with fear, said, "They are alive, but their condition is unnatural." Then suddenly, one person looked directly at the camera and said in a loud voice, "You are too late. There is no escape now." The drone's video feed cut out immediately. An eerie silence fell over the control room of the Ocean Quest. Everyone was looking at each other. "Doctor," Elena slowly said, "if this is true, then the question is, did they survive for all these years?" Sanjay replied, "There's no explanation for food or oxygen. The only possibility is some unknown force is at work inside the submarine." But more frightening was that last sentence, "There is no escape now." Why not? What had happened inside that night? None of the crew on the Ocean Quest could sleep. Faint signals kept coming over the radio, sometimes voices, sometimes just metallic sounds. Once, a song was clearly heard, an old Hindi song, one that the crew of the Inst Shakti might have sung in 1999, but it was playing in a strangely distorted manner. By morning, a decision was made this time. A person had to be sent down. A drone was not enough. Although the risk was immense, there was no other way. Finally, Sanjay volunteered to go. I will enter the submarine. If someone is truly alive, we have to bring them back, Doctor. Elena thought for a moment and then nodded. All right, but remember, you will only investigate. Do not try to make direct contact with anyone. Sanjay, wearing a heavy suit and attached to a special cable, began his descent into the deep sea. A microphone was fitted in his helmet so the whole team could listen. As he descended into the darkness, he whispered, I'm going down. I can see the light. The submarine is right in front of me. Then, a few minutes of silence. Everyone held their breath, listening. Suddenly, Sanjay's voice was heard. I am inside. The interior seems completely intact, but I can smell something like iron and raw. A few seconds later, his scream echoed. They are here. But they are not human. They have changed. The line went dead. After Sanjay's scream, the entire control room fell silent. Only whispers and strange noises came through the headset, sometimes like metallic clanging, other times the faint sound of someone's laughter. Then, it all faded away. Doctor. Elena's voice was heavy as she said, pull the cable. Pull it fast. The crew began to pull the cable, but strangely the cable seemed to be stuck. It wouldn't budge. The whole ship felt the strain, as if someone deep on the sea was holding the cable tight. After several minutes of trying, they couldn't retrieve Sanjay. Suddenly, a faint light appeared on the monitor from inside the submarine. The sit feed's camera slowly turned in. For a moment, everyone saw Sanjay. He was standing there, his helmet shattered, his eyes filled with a strange white light. His lips were moving as if he was speaking in an unknown language. Then the camera went completely dark. Panic spread aboard the Ocean Quest. Many shouted, we have to get out of here. This isn't the work of humans. Alex, terrified, said, there's something in this submarine that has changed the crew. Maybe a virus or something else. But Doctor, Elena said in a firm voice, no, if we turn back now, we will never know the truth. Sanjay might still be alive. It's our duty to bring him back. Everyone was hesitant. But that night, things took an even more terrifying turn. Around 2 a.m, a signal was picked up again in the ship's communication room. This time, the voice was clear. Elena, why did you come here? Go away before it's too late. The voice sounded like Sanjay's. Doctor. Elena was stunned. Is this a recording, or is Sanjay really talking? The voice came again. We are trapped. This submarine will not let us go. Then followed a strange, harsh laugh. The next morning, they decided to observe the submarine's position more closely. A new drone was deployed. As the drone descended, it first detected an unusual electromagnetic wave. All the instruments flickered repeatedly. Then, strange movements were seen around the submarine as if shadows were floating in the water. As the drone's camera moved closer, Sanjay was seen standing in front of the hatch. He stood perfectly still, his eyes silently gazing at the camera. Behind him, a few crew members were visible, torn uniforms, strangely pale skin, and the same brightness in their eyes. Together, they slowly raised their hands, as if beckoning the camera to come closer. Alex screamed in fear. They are not human anymore. They've become something else. As Doctor. Elena, though trembling, couldn't suppress her inner scientific curiosity. But how for over 20 years? Without any food or oxygen it's impossible. The only explanation is that some unknown energy inside the submarine has kept them alive. Just then, another voice came over the radio, this time deep, guttural, and not human. You who are outside, do not wake our sleeper. We are forever the children of the sea. Everyone in the room froze. The voice sounded as if it was coming from many throats at once. That night, another disaster struck the Ocean Quest. The ship's engines suddenly shut down. The lights went out, plunging everything into darkness. A strange vibration was rising from the bottom of the sea, as if something massive was awakening inside the submarine. The crew clung to each other in terror. Alex, in a trembling voice, said, "We have to escape from here now." "But doctor," Elena said firmly, "no, I will not return without uncovering the mystery." Just then, a sailor standing on the deck screamed, "The water, look! Someone is rising from the waters!" Everyone rushed to the deck. Breaking through the darkness of the sea, several shadowy figures were emerging. At first, they thought they were fish or dolphins, but as they got closer, it was clear they were human, dressed in old Navy uniforms, with that unnatural light in their eyes. They were swimming straight towards the Ocean Quest. Everyone on the deck stood frozen. The figures emerging from the dark sea were not merely human. Their eyes held an unnatural white light. Their faces were deeply scarred, and their skin looked as if it had decayed after many years underwater. The first figure placed a hand on the ship's hull, and everyone screamed in terror. The hand was as hard as metal and colder than ice. The sailors tried to fend them off with poles and ropes, but it was useless. Within seconds, 5 or 6 figures had climbed onto the deck. When the light fell on one of their faces, everyone was shocked. It was Sanjay, but there was no humanity left in his eyes. Parting his lips, he slowly said, "We have become part of the sea. You cannot escape anymore." Alex, trembling with fear, backed away. This is not possible. He was our colleague." Sanjay and the others began to advance together. The crew raised their guns in panic. "But doctor," Elena shouted, "no, don't shoot. They are still somewhat human." But it was too late. A sailor, in a fit of panic, pulled the trigger. The bullet hit Sanjay in the chest, but he didn't even flinch. Instead, a strange smile appeared on his face. A salty, black liquid slowly oozed from the wound, which looked more horrifying than the bullet itself. Sanjay tilted his head and said, "We are not dead, nor are we alive. The submarine has given us a new life with the breath of the sea." Then suddenly, a strange sound filled the air, like many voices chanting in unison. The water around the Ocean Quest began to surge violently. The ship rocked, and many sailors fell to the deck amidst the chaos. "Doctor." Elena noticed that these distorted humans were not attacking, but rather gesturing towards something. They were all looking down towards the ship's lower levels. Elena understood. They were beckoning someone below inside the In's Shakti. Suddenly, a familiar voice came over the radio. "Captain Viprem Singh's. Elena, if you want to know the truth, come down. The submarine is still waiting." Elena's heart pounded. Captain Vikram, who had disappeared 20 years ago, was he really alive? Alex, trembling with fear, said, "You can't be serious, Elena. This is a trap." But Elena felt that this might be the only chance to learn the truth. She said in a firm voice, "I'm going down. I will enter the In's Shakti." Over the next few hours, they prepared a small submersible. Many of the Ocean Quest's crew objected, but Elena would not be deterred. She asked Alex to accompany her. Alex was reluctant at first but finally agreed. "If something happens to you, at least someone needs to be there to collect the evidence." The submersible slowly descended into the ocean's darkness. Countless shadowy figures floated outside the lost crew of the Ins Shakti. They surrounded the submersible one by one, but did not attack. Instead, they guided it on its way down into the deep. Finally, Elena and Alex reached the front of the submarine. The hatch was mysteriously half open. As they shone a light inside, writing was clearly visible on the inner wall, painted in old navy colors. "We are not alone in the deep." Alex, his throat dry, whispered, What does that mean?" Elena's breathing grew heavy. "It means there was something inside the Ins Shakti that didn't let the crew remain human." They entered the submarine. The intense snow made it difficult to breathe. The corridor walls were covered in scratch marks, and in some places there were dried blood stains. An eerie silence filled the interior. Suddenly, Captain Bikram Singh's voice came through the speaker. "You are too late. We have already merged with the sea." And at that very moment, from the dark corridor ahead, the light of many eyes glowed at once. The submarine's corridor grew increasingly narrow. Elena and Alex moved forward, their flashlights illuminating the path. All around them was silence, except for the sound of water dripping from somewhere in the distance. Suddenly, strange symbols on the wall caught their eye. They were not military insignia but rather like ancient script. The markings glowed with a faint blue aura, as if they weren't carved into the submarine's metal hull but were emerging from within it. Alex, frightened, whispered, These were not written by humans." Elena shone her flashlight on the symbols. Each one depicted waves, serpentine lines, and symbols resembling human eyes. It was as if someone had been drawing them over and over inside the submarine. Just then, a voice came over the radio, perfectly clear, a strong voice. "Doctor, Elena, you've finally come. I am Bikram Singh." Elena's heart skipped a beat. "Captain, you were alive." A low laugh was heard from the voice. "Alive? No, we are not alive. We have merged with the sea, but we are still here." At the end of the corridor, a massive steel door appeared. The same strange symbols were carved above the door, and next to it was written, "Do not open." Alex froze. No, this is a trap. If we go in, we'll end up like them." But Elena knew that to find the truth, this door had to be opened. As she reached for it, the door opened on its own. Upon entering, they saw a vast chamber. All around were broken machinery, dried skeletons on floating chairs, and in the center, a tank filled half with water, half with a strange blue liquid. Something was moving inside the tank. Suddenly, the lights flickered on. A figure emerged from the tank. It looked human, but its eyes glowed like the deep light of the sea. Its skin was marked with something like algan, and a liquid like water flowed through its body. This was Captain Bikram Singh. He slowly extended a hand and said, "We are sending a message, Elena. The sea has remade us. The Ins Shakti was not lost in an accident. We awoke something." Alex, trembling, asked, "What did you awaken?" A strange smile formed on Bikram's lips, an ancient entity of the sea. One that had been sleeping for millions of years. We thought it was just deep water pressure or a ghost story, but it was real. When we reached the deepest part of the ocean, it found us, and it did not let us go. The symbols on the chamber walls suddenly began to glow. The blue liquid in the tank started to churn. Bikram raised his hand and said, "Now you two must decide, will you return to the human world, or will you become children of the sea, like us?" Elena stood there stunned. 1,000 questions raced through her mind. Are they human, or something else? Is it possible to report this truth to the outside world? Alex, his throat dry, whispered, "Elena, we have to get out of here, now." But just then more eyes began to glow from the darkness of the chamber. The lost crew of the Ins Shakti was coming forward, one by one, half human, half strange entity. Their voices rose in a terrifying, mesmerizing chorus. "Stay. Become one of us." The flashing of eyes within the chamber intensified. More than 20 figures slowly advanced. Their movements were unnatural, as if their bodies were flowing like water. Alex screamed in terror. "Elena, they won't let us go. We have to escape now." But Elena stood frozen. The figure of Vikram Singh looked at her and said in a calm voice, "You don't understand, Elena. The sea has chosen us. The human body is fleeting, but the sea has given us new life. Why are you afraid? You can stay with us if you want." Tears welled up in Elena's eyes. The man standing before her was the same Captain Bikram who was once a symbol of bravery. Now he stood in a distorted form. Yet his voice held a strange enchantment. Alex suddenly grabbed her hand and pulled. "No, don't listen to them. They are not human anymore. This is a curse." At that moment, the symbols on the wall flared with a bright blue light. The entire submarine shuddered, as if some immense power was awakening from within. The sound of water, metallic vibrations, and whispers filled the air. All the crew members began to chant in unison. "You cannot escape. Shakti is yours now." Elena and Alex ran towards the corridor. The beam of their flashlight trembled, showing the way ahead. Behind them echoed the unnatural voices and the sound of footsteps. Alex, panting, said, "If we don't get out of here right now, we'll become like them." But the further they ran, the more the corridor seemed to change. The path they had come through was nowhere to be found. The doors were shifting their positions, as if the submarine itself wanted to trap them inside. Suddenly, as they rounded a corner, Sanjay stood before them. A strange smile was on his face. "You've come this far only to turn back? No, now you too must be transformed." As he extended his hand, the air around them grew heavy. Elena felt her breath catch. Alex, with a trembling hand, aimed the flashlight at Sanjay's face and shone it brightly. For a moment, Sanjay recoiled, covering his eyes. Seizing the opportunity, they sprinted towards the hatch. Finally, the main hatch of the submarine came into view, but the door was locked from the inside. Alex desperately tried to turn the lever. The door wouldn't open. Behind them, the terrifying, mesmerizing chant rose again. "Stay, join us, the sea has chosen." Elena closed her eyes and shouted, "No, I am human. I will not be a slave to the sea." Just then, the door trembled and burst open. A powerful current of water rushed in. Elena and Alex were swept outside, and behind them, the In's Shakti sank back into the darkness. Once outside, they managed to get into their submersible. As he caught his breath, Alex said in a trembling voice, We made it. But the submarine is still down there." Elena looked out the window. In the deep darkness, the In's Shakti was glowing with an airy light, like the eye of a giant creature on the seafloor. She slowly whispered, "No, this isn't over. They won't let us go." Just then, the submersible's radio crackled to life. Faintly, Bikram Singh's voice came through, "Elena, you cannot escape. We will find you again." Alex looked at her in terror. The submersible slowly began to ascend, but they both knew the real nightmare had just begun. The submersible was ascending, but an eerie silence surrounded it. The sound of the sea, the pressure of the water, everything seemed to have unnaturally ceased. Alex was checking the radio channels when he suddenly froze. Elena, look at this. Strange signals were appearing on the screen. A series of symbols, the same ones they had seen on the walls of the In's Shakti. Not only that, the symbols were slowly turning into words. "Othine Quest, you have entered our domain." A shiver ran down Elena's spine. They thought they had escaped the submarine, but was freedom truly possible? When the submersible finally surfaced next to the Ocean Quest, An unnatural stillness hung over the ship. Usually, there would be the hum of machinery, voices, the sound of engines, but here, there was only the mournful cry of the sea wind. As they boarded the ship, they saw that all the lights were on, the doors were open, but there was no one in sight. Alex whispered in terror, Where is Evrionet?" A piece of paper suddenly fluttered across the deck. On it was written, "You brought us with you." Entering the command center, they saw that the radio system was on by itself. Every screen displayed a single word, Shakti. Suddenly, all the machines started up at once. The engine, the radar, even the crane. But no one was operating them. Eleanor realized the curse of the Shakti had now spread to the Ocean Quest. Halax, in a trembling voice, said, "If we don't get out of here now, the entire ship will fall under their control." But where could they escape? A ship stranded in the middle of the ocean. No helicopter, no boats. All mysteriously gone. Elena looked out the window and saw the Shakti slowly rising from the deep, dark sea. A strange light surrounded it, as if the entire ocean was being illuminated from beneath the vessel. Elena gritted her teeth and said, "This has to end. If Shakti surfaces, the world will be in danger." Standing on the deck of the Ocean Quest, Elena and Alex looked at each other. Their decision was clear. Shakti had to be destroyed. Alex pointed to the submersible. "We can plant a bomb inside it. If we blow up the core reactor, the whole submarine will be destroyed." But the problem was they didn't know the extent of Shakti's power. Perhaps the explosion would awaken the sea itself. Still, there was no other choice. They once again descended into the deep sea in the submersible. Shakti was now fully awake. Countless beams of light shot out from within. Around it, numerous shadows, the forms of the old sailors, floated in the water. Elena whispered, "They are watching us." The submersible slowly approached Shakti and stopped. Alex went out to plant the explosives. Each step was as difficult as facing death. Just then, Vikram Singh's voice was heard again on the radio. "Elena, you could have been one of us. Why do you resist? Just think you are immortal." Elena closed her eyes and replied, "The human spirit is free. I will not be a slave." At that very moment, Alex activated the explosives. A deafening roar erupted from within Shakti. The light grew even brighter, as if a sun had exploded inside the sea. All the shadows screamed and scattered. Elena and Alex quickly steered the submersible away. Behind them, a massive explosion. The water shook, and a column of sea reached for the sky. The Shakti vanished, shattered, and dissolved into the darkness. When they returned to the surface, the Ocean Quest was standing still. All the machines were silent, as if nothing had happened. Alex, exhausted, said, We did it." But Elena looked out the window. The sea was calm, the sky was clear, yet she felt that somewhere in the depths, an eye was still watching. She whispered, "No, this isn't over. The sea never gives up its claim." Then silence.